Hello, we are going to discuss full bust adjustments, also known as FBAs. Simply put, an FBA is an adjustment to your pattern that provides more room in the chest area, which of course prevents stretching across your chest, which is nice because that stretching can often cause gaping either under your armpits or in your neckline, which we all want to avoid. So, why would I need an FBA? Let's go there next. Well, most patterns, not all, size to a B cup, but we're not all B cups. So if you are in a situation where your chest is actually larger than the pattern is sized for, then you need a full bust adjustment to accommodate for that. So where we want to go from there is, how do I determine if that is my case, if I'm going to need an FBA? Well, if it's available, your pattern will help you. It's important to note that actually not all patterns have an FBA built in. We are not going to discuss how to create an FBA in a pattern that it is not built in. We are focused solely on patterns that do already have it built in. So if it does have it built in, it will be based on the difference between your over and full bust measurements. So how do I measure for that? Well, first of all, you measure your over bust and your full bust. To do that, you want to make sure you are wearing a bra, specifically the type of bra you would normally be wearing with the garment that you are making. So if you would be wearing a padded bra with this garment, you would want to make sure you wear a padded bra to take this measurement. If you would not wear a bra with this garment, or not typically wear a padded bra with this garment, well, then you would follow those same guidelines for taking the measurements. When you are taking the measurements, you want to make sure that the tape measure lays flat, your arms are down, which is your indicator that you're either going to need help from someone to take this measurement, or a self-measuring tape to take this measurement. Either one of those things work. We don't always have one or the other, but hopefully you can work it out, because its flatness is where you're going to get the best measurement, is ensuring that lies flat across your body and in the right spaces. From there, your pattern will tell you if this is so much less than this, you need an FBA. If you fall underneath that range, then you don't need an FBA. So now I have my measurement. Well, we're going to pretend in this world you have your measurement. What do I do with it? Well, obviously this is not a one measurement fits all. Each pattern may vary. So you always want to go by what the pattern says. In this particular case, for today's purposes, we're going to use the Bella Sunshine's Sahara pattern as our reference. I chose this because the overbust measurement in this dress or peplum is the most important measurement for proper fit. And in this case, the Sahara recommends that if this is 3 inches or more less than your full bust measurement, then you want to choose the FBA pattern pieces for the size at your over bust measurement. And this is where I think some people get caught up. They'll do full bust adjustment because they see that this is 3 inches less or more. Like, say this particular measurement came out to 37 inches and this measurement was 34 inches, so we know we need an FBA. But they continue to choose a size in their FBA, in their full bust measurement size range. When you are doing this particular pattern, this is the one that they say is the most important to focus on. So in this case, we'll pretend like my over bust measurement calls for a 14, but my full bust measurement calls for a higher size because it's larger. Well, I would actually stick with my size 14, but do the full bust adjustment to compensate for that extra 3 inches that I need in this space. And what that does for you is it ensures that this area of the dress and on your neckline, etc., is still going to fit you properly. If you size to this and still do a full bust adjustment, then this area up here is going to be very loose, and you're still going to get gaping, but you're going to get a different type of gaping because it's not gaping because it's pulling, it's gaping because you have too much fabric up here because you compensated on both sides. So let's take a look at some pattern pieces that do and don't have a full bust adjustment. So this particular pattern piece, and let me zoom out just a touch to show you. This particular pattern piece does not have the full bust adjustment, where this one does. And I'm just going to line them up on top of each other so that you can clearly see, or hopefully clearly see, the difference. So you notice my neckline is still the same. The front allowance here is still the same. At the bottom, my non-bust adjustment comes down a little bit lower, but the big difference you see here is it gives me more room here in my armpit area, which is going to prevent that gaping, but it gives more room across, which is what is going to prevent that stretching. And you can see it doesn't build a ton of ease in, but it does definitely build in enough ease. I would say if you are way more than 3 inches over, which most people do not tend to be, then you might want to consider going up a size, but nothing too drastic. You would still want to stick pretty close to the size of your overbust measurement. You can also always make a muslin or a quick sew together option to just try it on to see, to ensure before you use your favorite fabric, you can make your lining first, and that will also give you a good idea. I'm also going to lay out a raglan top piece here that has a full bust adjustment. And I want you to see here, that comes in nice and severely under the bust. So in this case, they built out across here, but not only did they build out across here, they tucked it in a little and brought it up here also to help compensate for that full bust adjustment. And then this is the same pattern, the same top, but not in a full bust adjustment, same size and all. So you see the difference. You see, and let me just lay this out so you can see very easily. You see it's much more of a straight line. So in this pattern, how they accommodated, one of the ways they accommodated to give that space was they brought it in a little concave, and that gives it a nice form fit. Although this, I will say, this particular pattern is not a super form fitting pattern, but it does prevent it from looking too loose when you are doing your full bust adjustment. So I'm sorry, I know that that's kind of hard to see when they're lined up on top of each other, but each pattern, as you can see, the point I'm trying to make here is that each pattern can do it slightly differently. So feel free to check it and make sure. And in this particular raglan pattern, instead of a 3-inch difference between the two, it called for a full bust adjustment if it was more than 2.5 inches. And I want to say that it changed as you went up in size. When you see that happen, it means that the pattern has considered that as you go up in size, your chest also stands a chance of going up in size. And they did build some of that ease in. So that's why I say always make sure you take a look at what your pattern actually says versus just assuming, well, if it's more than 3 inches, I always want to do an FBA, because that's not always the case. And in some cases, when you don't see an FBA on the pattern, it might be because they've accommodated. They've tried to accommodate in their sizing for that, but I tend to stick, because I am a person that regularly needs full bust adjustments, I tend to stick with patterns that do offer that as an option. But there's always that pattern that you just love and have to have that might not have it. And then I have to do a manual full bust adjustment. I have to figure out how to do it on my own based on how that pattern works. So hopefully this demystified full bust adjustments for you. I know when I was first learning, this was one of the things that I also struggled with, specifically because I would still try and size to this measurement, even though I was doing an FBA, and couldn't figure out why I still had issues. So feel free to ask any questions below that you might have, and we will try and address them as we see them. And thanks everyone for your time. Have a great day.